Hello and welcome to Limitless, the show that brings you inspiration on a Saturday morning. And today we have Tony Anthony, who is a best-selling author and highly sought-after international speaker. Tony is the CEO of GCS, Great Commission Society, which is a global charity that exists to communicate the Christian gospel message throughout the world with excellence and expedience, and provides support for a wide range of humanitarian needs. Without further ado, welcome my guest, Tony Anthony. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, Maria. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Now, I know you're a busy man. You're doing a lot of work abroad and in very dangerous circumstances. And, so thank you so very much for being here. Now, can you tell me about this charity that you founded, GCS? Can you tell me how it started and how you got the inspiration or the calling rather to begin this great movement?
Yeah, thank you. Well, what a question. Where to start? I've been a Christian now for nearly 33 years, and
Yes.
Jesus saved me in prison. I was a very violent man. My life was a mess. And through the ministry of a man called Michael Wright from Northern Ireland, who
Mm.
came to visit me when I was in prison in Cyprus, through those visits, I got to know who Jesus Christ is, and I gave my life to Christ on the 3rd of May, 1991. And really, I've been serving the Lord ever since. Years later, a group of like-minded believers, we felt it was important to take the Great Commission seriously, which is to communicate the gospel throughout the world, and that is our mission today. So we came together to set up this organization. We've had many ups and downs in ministry, but our platform now is a very strong, robust movement. We've got teams in 48 nations. We've got over 3,000 missionaries serving voluntarily, doing a wonderful job. It's a great team effort, and we're reaching into about 115 countries right now.
Mm, amazing. So how many people has GCS helped to evacuate, and how much food assistance has GCS supplied to people so far?
In Ukraine, well, yeah, to be honest with you, we've been involved in the work in Ukraine from the beginning of this current aggression, invasion into Ukraine since the 24th of February, 2022. And really, in the first few months of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, our ground teams, and I had the honor to be able to join them, most of them on the rescue missions. We evacuated 59,321 people, of
Mhm.
which 39% were children. We evacuated them to the west of the country, and also there was a large portion who left the country completely. And with our global church network, we tried to connect people with the right churches and groups, putting in the safety measures to make sure these vulnerable women and children were safe. Yep, and really with the help of a lot of supporting partners. We've got a big collaboration that continues. We still do the work. We've taken in just a little over 7,000 tons of food aid. Um,
Mm,
and if I can maybe explain what that is, because that just sounds like a big number, but we take them in these trucks, the large trucks that hold 20 tons.
yes.
And so we've taken 350 trucks, over 350 trucks. And so each truck holds about 2,000 plus food boxes. And
Yes.
each food box has enough food for a family of four for 4 days. So that's 16 meals. I can't tell you if a family of four ate from that box, but I can tell you how many meals. And so far, we've taken in 11.2 million meals. And it's just an act of God that we've been able to do that, really.
Yes. And I'm sure there would have been many limitations along the way, a lot of things coming against you. And, I'm sure you have many testimonies to share with us. So, hopefully we'll hear from that later on. So, what's the greatest need in Ukraine for the Ukrainian people right now?
Yeah, well, it's really that's quite a tough question to um to answer, really, and it's also got a geographic relevance. Um,
Yeah.
you know, throughout this last 22 months that we've been working there, the war has wreaked havoc, and it continues to rage. And in that time, I really think that the situation has just got even more extreme. Our organization, there are a little over 500 organizations that are all communicating through the UNHCR, and that just it just makes common sense to have that collaboration, a communication. We're always trying to find out safe passages for humanitarian corridors, and just sharing, information. There are those lucky ones that get financial support, but we're not one of those. But there's about 500 organizations that are helping across the country. The vast majority of those organizations, and most of those are, many of them are UN organizations. They are working in the west of the country with the IDPs, the internally displaced people. There are millions of people that have been displaced across the country. They've had to leave their homes. Their homes have been bombed. Our organization, we are working literally as close, within 10 kilometers of the front line. And in fact, we've been as close as 100 meters from the front line. So we're working with people that didn't want to evacuate. They're quite poor people, mostly elderly. Their homes have been bombed. Right now, it's still winter. And so, like so many of these villages, like in Kherson, there was the Kakhovka Dam that was bombed, I think October last October or July, and an entire village was completely submerged in water. And so that water has since receded. And now people's roofs have caved in. There's black mold everywhere. So they need money for chemicals to kill away the molds. They need to get their roofs. And so we're trying to help in small levels with some construction, some house conservation. We continue to take food. But I got to be honest with you, Maria, the key part of what we're doing is we're not just going there helping in a physical way, because, food runs out. What we found is that the Ukrainian people are so resilient, and also it's a Christian country, at least nominally. And many people have been caused to doubt and turn away from God, give up hope. Their loved ones have been killed. And we are sharing the gospel message with them. We're loving them. And by the way, I've seen some pretty unprofessional evangelism in the time we've been there from other organizations that come in. They just want to preach and nothing more. And I appreciate that to a point. But when a person's had their husband killed, they've been raped, and now they're trying to escape, the last thing they want is somebody just going up to them preaching and ramming down a message down their throats. What we've been doing is we've been sharing the message, but asking permission, loving people, getting to know their name, what are their needs, making sure that we don't go empty-handed, and we share with them the message of the gospel. And we ask permission, and nobody has said, no, thank you, I don't want to hear. We've asked permission, can we pray for you? They've all wanted that. And so we've been able to distribute over 800,000 Ukrainian Bibles, over 1 million gospel tracts, and we verbally shared the gospel with them, even as the bombs are coming down.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. It's and I like the fact that you've mentioned, you're not just speaking, you're not just Bible bashing, you're actually giving them what you have in your hands. God said to Moses, what have you got in your hand? I've got a staff. He used that. And that was the very thing that was used in order to bring the people out of Israel. It's the very thing that was used to put the brass serpent around in order to heal the people later on. I mean, it's what we have in our hands. And you're showing a prime example of just, the love of God, practically as well as spiritually. Absolutely amazing. Now, of course, Israel has taken center stage in the world news, and we know that GCS has been working there as well. Can you start by providing an overview of the mission and goals of GCS in relation to the Israel-Gaza conflict, please?
Yes, of course. Well, that's been a real challenge, to be honest with you, the moment that happened as well, because we also have had for many years people serving in Cyprus, in
Yes.
Lebanon, in Israel, and in Gaza. And so really recognizing the dire circumstances faced by, civilians trapped in the crossfire, we were very fortunate to be again one of the first responders, but unfortunately very limited in what we could do, and also a very different nature of war, politically and also from a religious aspect. And if you help one, then you become an enemy of the other. And so we had to be very careful about what we could publicize about what we were doing, and that
Yeah.
makes it difficult from a fundraising perspective. But we were able to swiftly initiate an emergency appeal to support those affected. So
Yes.
one area that drew our attention was a place called Ashkelon,
Mhm.
and that's in southern Israel. So there are about 300, and this is in the beginning after the initial attack happens. Of course, that's how the world frames it. But to be honest with you, there's been attacks from both sides for centuries, of course.
Mm.
But the one that hit the news, you had 350 residents that had to be evacuated because of the attack from Hamas.
Mhm.
And among those evacuees were very vulnerable people, single mothers, children, and unable to access state assistance. Also because they were living so close to that borderline. And
Yeah.
so anyway, in response to that situation, our volunteers, in collaboration with our ground partners, were able to work as quickly as possible with those displaced families,
Yes.
and provide basics to those that didn't have anything: shelter, food, and again sharing the gospel.
Mm.
But again, I want to highlight that over and again. Our support goes beyond material support that runs out. But we've had to be very strategic. With 10,000 Palestinians and 1,400 Israelis killed at
Mm.
that point, we needed to help our team in Gaza as well. And there was a breakdown in communication. We lost communication because the electricity was cut, and people were missing. But our team has since now moved across the Rafah crossing into Egypt and serving from over there. And they continue the work, doing the best they can. But to be honest with you, we have so little resources to give. Um, there was a bit of a change, people redirected there. I got the impression, it sounds really negative, but almost like we've been struggling with Ukraine, asking people, almost begging, please help. I go there myself physically, and we are seeing women and children being killed, their
Mm.
homes, displacement. And we're asking Christian friends and businesses and family, please help. But even that has a limit. Countries have had a limit on what they can give. And I almost sense that people were almost relieved to hear of a new war because they were sick and tired of hearing about Ukraine. And that sort of really hurts me. But that was also another equal need, a very serious need. But again, we're looking to Christ to provide, not people at the end of the day. But it really is a struggle and a challenge.
Yes, most definitely. And we do know that. I mean, what a shame that people are actually feeling relieved to not have to give. And I know that at the end of the day, the essence of Christianity is Christ in you, the hope of glory, and you going and you preaching to them. But they have to live to experience this. They have to live to give the testimony and to be liberated and share that message. So really, people out there, if you can give, and when we all can give something, the question is, what have you got in your hand? What do you have in your hand? Because that is enough. Now, of course, we see nations rising against each other, and to further compound the problem, we're seeing the positive and negative effects of social media on politics. Now, your organization is described as a neutral mediator. How does this status enable GCS to operate effectively in the Israel-Gaza conflict and provide assistance to both sides?
Yeah, the mission that we have, and it's in our founding documents, is to
Mhm.
communicate the good news of the gospel message relevantly to every person in all the world.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to target any particular nationality. It's not like we favor Ukrainians over Russians, or people from Gaza over people from Israel, or people from Armenia over people from Azerbaijan. Um,
Mhm.
but if they fit the category of human, they need to hear the gospel, whatever their nationality, color, language, and what have you. But we're also trying to follow that biblical principle of helping that person in need, and we're doing it where we can with what we've got. It's really tough, but we've got a deep commitment to humanitarian work, inspired by our Christian values. I mean, the people in our organization, well, we don't have a salary for what we do. We're doing it because, well, if you like, we've been paid in full by Jesus. He's laid down his life on the cross for us, and it's a no-brainer to share that good news with other people.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
we really believe in helping vulnerable communities around the world in times of need. But as a faith-based organization that's actively engaged with humanitarian activities, we're trying to work objectively and independently and without bias,
Mhm.
and we are bound by principles of humanitarian action, but we've adopted the Charter for Faith-Based Humanitarian Action, because we are doing what we're doing because God's changed our lives. So
Yeah.
and that's central to the mandate of the gospel. It's and how we operate. And we come across many other organizations, because we were appointed by the UN, United Nations Food Security Cluster in Ukraine,
Mhm.
as part of their strategic advisory group. The SAG is called. Not a very flattering name, but we're on the strategic advisory group advising um, the UN organizations and those 500 organizations where they need to best allocate their resources.
Mhm.
And we're not getting funded by them, but they can see the work that we're doing, and
Mhm.
we've made some lovely friends, many of whom, by the way, are believers working
Mhm.
in those organizations, and they can see we're being rather overt with our Christian faith, but we are helping people, yeah, impartially, dispassionately, well, and extravagantly as well. Whoever we can help. Our team have come to visit a village here that was on the front line at one point, and it's stuck between Mykolaiv and Kherson. So, Valeria, can you tell me what is the greatest pressing needs that you have actually?
Все на кришу перекрити. Балки надо там. Да, там мене й потолки, короче, да, там.
So winter's coming in November. How will you get by?
Я не знаю, я, мабуть, буду десь їхати.
I would
Хотіла
have
би
to
тут остатися.
I would like to stay
знаєте.
here, but if it...
And I say this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ.
Я говорю эту молитву во имя Иисуса Христа. Аминь. Пускай Господь
Сядь.
благословит вас.
Oh, God bless you, Valentina. God bless you.
Пускай Господь благословит вас.
God bless you.
Правда, Господь не забыл о вас. И будет заботиться.
And the houses you can see here, every one of them has been blown up. Each of them were occupied by the Russian forces. There are many women and children that we've just met now and interviewed them, that they were held as hostages. Now this community here, they really need help. Now, they've got plenty of food actually in this location. They're beginning to stock up as much as possible because they need to survive the winter. But if you can see, in temperatures that go -20, to have roofs like this, you're not going to survive. Many will have to move out and find another safe home to live, and well, they don't have anywhere. So these people need to be able to get access to wood burners. people might say, well, why don't they go and chop some wood? Well, it's not so easy because the Russians have left mines in the forests, and so many have tried to go out to get some wood to burn and have been blown up in the process. So we need to be able to find a way to get them wood and wood burners and to help them survive the winter. Please pray for this community here.
That's wonderful. So can you tell me about any other partnership alliances that GCS has formed to enhance or impact and reach the Israel-Gaza area then, apart from SAG?
Yes, well, we're not collaborating with the UNHCR organization in that part of the world, but we have ground teams that we partner with that are already based there. And our relationship over the years has been built up from our preaching capability. So we provide evangelism training. They learn from us and we learn from them.
Okay, great. So what are some of the other unique challenges and obstacles that GCS faces when operating in conflict zones like UK, Ukraine, and now Israel, Gaza? And how does your organization navigate these challenges?
Yeah, well, we got to grow eyes in the back of our heads here, and we take measured risks. I mean, I have a security background, and so I know to ask certain questions when we're going into certain conflict zones. I was not long ago in Kherson, and there's a place in Ukraine where there was bombing happening right there, and so the Kahovka Dam was flooded, and the houses were destroyed. But you got the enemy on one side of the river, and just firing across. So we had to watch where we are. We tried to collaborate with government organizations. It's been phenomenal having the church network across the country, who we've been working very closely with, because there are many people they needed to leave, and nobody should judge that. They were trying to survive, protect their families. But there are those Christians that decided to stay. They wanted to stay behind to help the many that were not able to leave. And so it's been phenomenal to be able to work with these people. These have become our partners. And along the way, we've had other people see what we're doing. The former Minister of Defence of New Zealand, Ron Mark, he joined us for a while as a charity ambassador. And it was great having something like that try to advocates on our behalf, on behalf of the Ukrainian people, and other individuals that we've been working with. I've had an honor to be able to have old friends like my dear friend George Ignat, who was a former MMA fighter, but a Christian, and he has set up an organization called Fight for Freedom. And so we've collaborated a great deal from the Romania side going into Ukraine, but also from the other bordering nations. But with Israel and Gaza, that's been, again, very difficult because there's such hostility. If anybody sees you helping somebody from the other side, then you automatically become, fair game, a cause for attack. So how do you help just people, regardless of their nationality? That's been challenging, but we've been going into it prayerfully. Wise as serpents, peaceful as doves, and sure enough, God's kept us safe. I've had to wear a bulletproof vest, so it's only been wise. God's given me this body for a short period of time, and trying to protect it. If I can keep this going as long as possible, then I might be able to help some more people.
Wow, that's amazing. Obviously, it's not safe. It's even with the body armor, even with all that you're wearing to protect yourself. Do you actually ever get scared, and how do you overcome that in such dangerous situations?
I'd like to share this with you, but when I first heard about the news broke about the war in Ukraine, well, of course, really, it started actually in 2014 when the Russian Federation took over Crimea and occupied it. But in 24th of February 2022, I got the phone calls because we had 87 team members across Ukraine, and we were concerned for their safety.
Yes.
And there was what was really heartbreaking, what made me very scared, was the radio silence. But finally, we got in contact with every team member, and all of them had moved to the borders: Poland, Hungary, Moldova, Romania, and Slovakia. And they were helping the refugees there and then. And I was coordinating a lot from here, from in the UK. But it got to the point where I needed to get there. I needed to get there to understand the situation. I was a close protection bodyguard in my former life, and so I understand a thing or two about security and when there's weapons. And I may know a little bit more than the average civilian, perhaps, in that regard. So it became important to go there. And I got to tell you, I was really struggling, because I was thinking, well, I preach the gospel all over the world. I already do anyway, in very dangerous locations where it is illegal to share the gospel, countries where terrorist organizations are opposed to Christianity, but we still share the gospel, and God keeps us safe. But this was another situation with bombs being reported and tanks. That's a slightly different level. Yes, I was flooded with fear. But then I had to then think through that and work through it. The Bible tells us to work out your salvation, understand it. And then I began to realize, no, to live is Christ, to die is gain.
That's
And I
right.
began to realize I'm not afraid. I am afraid for what will my wife and sons feel if I was reported dead. But again, I began to put it in perspective. I became more fearful for these women and children and elderly people that are stuck there, that can't do anything. So that's what became the ultimate fear that drove me to get out there. And then I began to see, if I can share this with you. We first went out there with a convoy of 10 or 15 minibuses, I can't remember, packed with lots of goodies, many things that were probably not the right things that people needed. Like nappies and Calpol and things like that. Well, actually, they needed food and medicine instead. But anyway, we went to the very far west of the country, where it was very safe, and we were all very worried. But it helped me to absorb what was going in here. And we dropped off all the goods. Another group of people from Ukraine collected them, and we all returned to the border to Romania, feeling like, wow, we've saved people. But I didn't think we did. And I was thinking, well, where have these goods gone? Are they being stored in a warehouse? Are they being sold? Or what's going on here? So I decided to follow the money, to follow the food. And we began to purchase food supplies and physically take it out there. And we'd find a storage area, and then we'll take the food into smaller vehicles, and we'll drive as close as we could with our collective intelligence to those frontline areas in the east, south of Ukraine. And we found these communities. And as we were there, you know what? I can tell you, Miria, there was not a bit of fear in me. It's almost like I was filled with confidence in Christ. Wherever we were looking, you could hear bombs, you could hear missiles, you started to hear more and more drones, military drones. And they zip around really fast. It's not a laughing matter. But we were looking at them thinking, well, God's protecting us. This bomb's not going to kill me until God says so. And
That's right.
we would ask the people, friends, we got this food for you. We've come here. I had a translator always. One of my translators is called Tamara. Tamara is Ukrainian, living in America, in Seattle. But she came over to help. Just amazing. Wearing a bulletproof vest that we gave her. And she'll be translating. And I'll be saying, friends, I know, can I tell you who we are and where we're from? And they were saying, yes, tell us. Why have you come here? Where are you? You're English. Why did you come to the war? You should stay at home. And I said, no. We've come because we love you. Can I tell you the reason why? What changed my life? And they would say to me, yes. And I would tell them how Jesus changed my life many years ago, and how I understood that Jesus came to die on the cross for our sins and overcame death, and today he's alive, and he's given us freedom from sin. And I put my faith in Jesus on the 3rd of May 1991 in prison, and God changed my life, and my life has been changed, and I'm here because of Jesus. And I shared the gospel, and I said, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. And we'll hear the bombs coming down. You can hear it in the videos that we posted online. And they were there also, but they were trembling. They were used to the sounds, but they let me pray, and we were giving out, make sure everybody had a Bible, everybody had a gospel tract, everybody had a good hug, and they took a box of food as well. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. I think that's amazing. It really, really is. And, it reminds me of sections in your book where you spoke about, just after you'd become a Christian, you'd spoken with Michael and, you began to change. And it almost seems like a lot of things that you were doing in that prison you were being moved by the Holy Spirit, and the faith that you had was just being reproduced. Each one of the other prisoners were receiving that faith and seeing supernatural things happening in their life. And I think it's wonderful because I see that again going on here with this ministry, where it's like he's guiding you, as he's sent you, he's provided for you, and has enabled you to be able to give to those people as you've received your giving, which is amazing.
Hello, this is Tony Anthony. I'm speaking to you from Kamyansky in Ukraine. The city of Kamyansky it's somewhere central in the country, about 20 kilometers away from the city of Dnipro. And our team have covered over 7,000 kilometers in the last week. It's been wonderful to be able to minister in this local church and to be able to share this morning testimonies on the gospel. And this afternoon we're going to also bring some teaching and evangelism. GCS has been serving in Ukraine now for the last 18 months, and we want to continue trying to help people to meet their needs, provide for them, and also to be able to present the gospel to them as well. Please do go on praying for the work in Ukraine.
People out there, you can give, you can support. This is something that you can partner with them in helping people in need right now. Right now they need it, and whatever you cannot get, people cannot pay you back, God will pay you back, and that's written in the Gospels as well. So of course, looking ahead, Tony, what are GCS's aspirations and goals for the future in terms of continuing your humanitarian work in the Israel-Gaza area, and what impact do you hope to achieve?
Yes, well, our organization, I've said it already, but our mission statement is to communicate the good news of the gospel message relevantly to every person in the world.
Yes.
But our vision statement, which shows us how we go about doing that, is to equip hundreds, to teach thousands, to reach millions until the job's done. And well, God has opening doors, and whether it's Israel, Gaza, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Ukraine, but across the world, Myanmar, our organization, we are pushing all the time towards that goal. So because of our mission to communicate the gospel with everybody in the world, well, at the minute that stands at 8 billion people. So it's a formidable task. But again, the vision statements equip hundreds to teach thousands to reach millions. You see, we provide an extensive amount of evangelism training. In actual fact, in the coming days, we've collaborated with First Fruits Music Awards, and we are providing training to the musical artists in how to bring the gospel message into gospel music, because gospel music has just become a genre, whereas actually gospel is a specific message. And we've developed over 200 training modules in evangelism and discipleship that we provide in Bible colleges around the world, in churches, smaller groups, one-on-one. We take people out on short-term missions on our website. We always publish every year the nations which we're willing to take people, applicants, as long as once we've vetted them and it's suitable and safe enough, then we will consider them for short-term missions. And we train people in the field. Now that's really great, where students get to see teacher, not just teach it, but also do it in action, showing them how to actually evangelize. And that's where we excel, when we are putting into practice. So in terms of our goal is to reach everybody in the world. The more people we train, the more people we equip, then we can then start thinking about the millions, and etc. So in the coming year, actually, that we have ahead of us, we have multiple missions that our team members are carrying out across Italy, different parts of Italy, including Sicily, Naples, some pretty rough areas. Working with communities. Our work continues in Ukraine. The teams will continue to serve where they are in the war zones. But we're also involved in many other facets of ministry, such as anti-human trafficking. So we get involved very heavily with that in South Asia, in India and Pakistan, to providing water wells. When we provide water wells in Pakistan, Pakistan's not such an easy place to actually go out spreading the gospel, but we've done it for years. We install water wells because such a large number of people don't have access to clean water.
Yes.
So we provide the funding for that, and we have a like a special celebration event, and the community then receive the water well. It's wonderful. That way it protects the water well. There's ownership, and then of course we leave behind. Well, here's the reason why we did it is because we love you, we care for you, and that's because we know that there's a God that loves us and cares for us. And here's how He showed it. 2024 years ago on the cross, and then we leave. But that we try to find methods of sharing the gospel. We've got many interns this year. I'm looking forward to many of those joining me in the mission fields. But we also have other associate evangelists that also will take new trainees under their wing to hopefully show them how to evangelize. And so doing, we will be spreading this good news of the gospel. It's not a message to keep silent. We need to be announcing this from the rooftops, the house, everywhere.
Yes, and I mean, sadly to say, but many Christians are still, as James was saying, do not be just a hearer of the word, but a doer. And many Christians, are still just hearing and maybe clapping and maybe wonderfully celebrating their liberation. But until you do, you have to be something. If you are Christian, it's the action that you take that solidifies the faith in your I am status as such. The I am means you're doing, you are acting as the Christ man. And I like the fact that you're replicating yourselves in others as well, which is the true sign of a leader, that you see somebody else rising up. Now, have you been able to see people within the areas that in anywhere in the world that you've worked, rise up after you've left, so that sort of charitable or evangelical, more like work is being imbibed, and the people, or young and old, Christians, are growing in faith and picking up that baton and continuing when you're gone?
Maria, you're speaking my language. Thank you for what an excellent question. That's what we're all about. Because you know what, the whole there are so many things we're trying to teach missionaries. Many people want to, I got many friends in the United States and the UK. They want to join me in one of the many countries in Africa. So they can experience the situation and then take a photograph with a lovely little black child with a smiling face and think, wow, I've reached Africa. No, you haven't. I'm trying to challenge people all the time about this missionary tourism. You know what I mean? I hate that. I want people to love souls, to develop a real love for reaching people. Yes, come with me to Africa or to Asia or Mexico or somewhere, but we're going to really touch hearts. But it's about the multiplication, because the thing is that one of my heroes has got to be Billy Graham. He's one of my evangelist heroes of all time. And one thing he commented once about, what would you do, Billy, if you could go back through your ministry and do it all over again? And the comment was pretty much on the lines, maybe not word for word, that I would train more people to do what I do. And I think that we've learned a lot from Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. We've adopted the Modesto Manifesto ourselves. We love those godly principles. But one of them that we've adopted is also learning from what they've omitted and some of the errors, and he verbalized that, and so we try to invest as much as we can, and so we're heavily involved in cross-cultural evangelism.
Yes.
And we're trying desperately because we'll go on a short-term mission, but then what? We can pat ourselves back and do a what do you call it? A Facebook dump of all the photographs that we've taken, and what? The real success is when we've been able to. The Bible says, "Iron sharpens iron," so one man sharpens another. And so when we're able to go to these countries and train, motivate, and equip the indigenous people who don't
Yes.
need a translator, they can share the gospel in their own language much better.
That's right.
And to learn that sort of technique, it's very tough because Christian anthropologists, they tell us that there are 3 sin response types. There are 3 sin response types. There are the people in the world that are coming from the innocent guilt culture, those
Mhm.
coming from the honor shame culture, and those coming from tribal cultures. And
Yes.
so, for example, in the UK, people are living in an innocence guilt culture. In other words,
Mm.
well, I'm innocent until proven guilty. We remind people of that all the time. But when we share the gospel from a Western perspective, we are talking about a courtroom, a judge, a criminal, a crime, a sentence, a
Yeah.
payment. Are you with me?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Now that works well in our society because we use the idioms that complement that.
Yes.
But for example, I'm half Chinese. My mother's Chinese. I was raised in China, and
Mm.
from that side of the family, they are very much an honor shame culture. So, for
Yeah.
example, most things that happen in society, well, really, they are seeking the approval of the hierarchy in the family, and that's
Mhm.
why they have more stronger, family ties because they're
Mhm.
conscious of not offending their family, and so
Yes.
they're very much people of honor and not showing shame.
Mhm.
So it doesn't always equate to use the Western idioms when we're sharing the gospel with somebody from an honor shame culture, especially
Mm.
when they might be more Buddhists or Shinto or Hindu and what have you. And then, of course, you've got the people that I spoke about in Africa, where we operate all over the continent. And you've got many that are obviously influenced by the tribal culture. And you also
Mm.
see evidence of this in South Asia, in India, Pakistan as well, where there are many people, they are influenced by the spirit world.
Yeah.
They believe that the good and bad that happens to them is affected by the spirits of the air, the ground, the trees, and so they try to appease them by doing spells, etc. And so if we go to them presenting the courtroom scene of the gospel,
Mm.
well, they don't have courtrooms in Papua Indonesia in the jungle. For example, let me give you another example. In Papua Indonesia, it's a jungle. I was in with Heli mission. They flew me in a helicopter over like miles and miles of trees, and they dropped
Mm.
me off to work with the Kurawai tribe.
Yeah.
And the Kurawai tribe, they're cannibals, actually. I'm glad they don't kill people anymore, but I was with them for a short time, and
Yes.
I know the gospel back to front. I know it very well. I'm very confident, but what I knew counted for naught because these people didn't understand my illustrations, my idioms. They didn't even understand pictures. So I had to learn from the beginning how to understand their culture, what makes them think. For example, if you speak to them about Jesus being the lamb, the lamb that takes away the sins of the world, well, they don't know what a lamb is. They've
Yeah.
never seen a lamb in the jungle. Um,
Mm.
they've seen wild pigs, and they know what it means to sacrifice a wild pig, with tusks. And so I said, well, Jesus is like the lamb of the wild pig of God who takes away the sins of the world, and
Mm.
they understood. So
Yeah.
I think learning about the local culture and training the indigenous people has got to
Yes.
be one of the most effective ways of reaching another people's group.
Yes, most definitely raising disciples, yeah, that's what this is about. That is the Great Commission, isn't it? Raising disciples.
That's right.
And I just love the passion, the passion when you speak about the work that you do, and I imagine that people are drawn to that. That's something that God has obviously given you in order to be able to communicate this gospel in whatever language and culture that you find yourself. So people who are out there, people who are watching right now, and want to connect with you, they want to be able to join you, partner with you. What should they do?
Maria, to sustain the vital work that the GCS society urgently requires, we need support for life-saving resources. We need
Yeah.
medicine. We need food, water, fuel. We need more Bibles. We need more gospel tracts, more translation. We need to pay for those flights. Um, if anybody can help us, it doesn't have to be just monetary. We are asking people, would you please pray for this work? Would you
Yeah.
please register interest? Maybe you'd like to receive our prayer diary. Maybe you can help physically. We invite people to contact us, visit our website, gcsmissions.com, and
Yes.
find out if you'd like to go on a short-term mission, and that way maybe we can help you. But if other people are able to help in a monetary great way, then that's fabulous. It doesn't have to be big; it can be small. But we're a registered charity,
Yes.
and not just in the UK, but in other countries where we are registered.
Yes.
And so, however we can, can you help us? Can we help you? Can we
Yeah.
collaborate together to further this vital gospel message?
Okay, wonderful. And for young people out there that also, or young and old, anybody who wants to actually join you on some of these trips, is that something that they can do? Can they just contact you and, getting onto your training courses and, start to become that evangelist? And perhaps if they feel God is calling them, is that something that they can actually do?
Absolutely. We've had 16-year-olds with parental permission come with us on missions to South Africa.
Mhm.
Uh, and I couldn't get rid of them. They wanted to go on the mission the next year as well. But whether they're 16, 18, 80, doesn't really matter. Age is irrelevant, because actually we need people of all ages or sexes,
Mm.
male, female, young, old. To be able to have a go at sharing the gospel,
Yeah.
because there's people that you can reach that maybe we can't, and also we learn from each other as well. So yeah, really, all are invited to help us. Even we consider people who, regardless of their backgrounds, people have had pretty, checkered backgrounds as well, and we've had to consider that. I'm the CEO of the organization, and I've been through that process myself. So we consider anybody and everybody.
Mm.
Even in actual fact, we've even had people that have not got a relationship with Christ, and they've been intrigued to find out more about what we do and how we do it.
Mhm.
And now, of course, when they join us, because they don't have that relationship, of course, we don't put them in that sort of awkward position where they share something that they don't know yet.
Yeah.
But they are exposed to what we're sharing. They get to experience that. And that's what I've seen in Ukraine. We've had people from all backgrounds work together.
Yes.
But of course, we are organizing the whole operation, and we let people do what they're good at. So if they can help in a practical way,
Mhm.
serving in a soup kitchen, or for example, in one of the squatter camps in South Africa, or whether
Yeah.
it's in Ukraine, giving out blankets to people, or something else.
Yeah.
We help people with trauma counseling. You can imagine, in war zones,
Mhm.
and we've been dealing with so many women that have been badly hurt,
Yes.
and I've just been out of my depth. I'm so glad that there's been a female presence with that training and that ability to be able to minister woman to woman,
Yes.
and that's been so appropriate. Also, that we also need to wear appropriate to do child protection
Mm.
disclosures, because we do work in schools as well, and
Yeah.
so yeah, we work. The world, the sky's the limit with this one, because we're trying to reach everybody on the planet.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so very much for being an amazing guest. Now, of course, Tony, I was reading your book like I was mentioning before, and I went through the whole book and I was completely fascinated. Now, can you tell people where they can get this book? It's called it's on the screen now. It's called Taming the Tiger. Can you tell people where they can get this book and just some information that they can get a rough idea? Because obviously this is your testimony. It tells people about how you found the Lord and just how you started off from a child all the way through to pretty much your walk with God. So can you tell us a bit about this book, please?
Yes, of course. Well, yeah, I've got one right here, and this is one I'm going to send to you as well. Yeah, so yeah, the book now it's in 40 languages. We've got over 2 million copies out there. So
Yes.
you can go to our website, gcsmissions.com. There's a shop on there. but you can order it from Amazon, Waterstones as well. But so yeah, this is a revised edition. It's interesting when you put yourself in the limelight, then after a period of time, I think people like to not, build you up and then knock you down. So, it had some attacks a number of years ago. Was it like 10, 13 years ago? But we brought out a revised edition, and it's still standing and still going strong. So we have it in many other languages too. So yeah, go on our website.
Brilliant. Thank you so very much. Thank you for being an amazing guest. And I'm going to be following everything that you're doing and supporting. And people out there, make sure that you go onto the website and see how you can connect with them. Of course, there are places that perhaps you might not be able to be at. You can't be everywhere, but that somebody, a servant of God, is out there working for this mission. You can partner with them so that where you cannot go, your support, your aid, all of that can go for you in order to support these people to do the work that they do. So yeah, thank you so very much, Tony. Thank you for being a guest on the show.
Thank you for having me. You've been a lovely host. Thank you so much. Great questions. Bless you.
Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, this is the end of the show. And of course, it's the end for today. But until next week, I want you to continue to live under the canopy of the Holy Spirit. So that's goodbye for me and goodbye from Tony. Bye.